Hello everybody, this is David Mitchell. I suppose you all know that Judaism doesn't believe that Jesus rose from the dead. But to tell you the truth, there's a really interesting passage about this in the Talmud. Now, I imagine you know that the Babylonian Talmud is the core text of Rabbinic Judaism. And on page 106a of Tractate Sanhedrin, we read about someone who made himself live by the power of the name of God. Rav Shimon ben Lakish talks about a man called Balaam, or Bilam in Hebrew, and he says, "Woe to him who makes himself live by the name of God." And this short passage is really about Jesus. Let me explain. Let's start with this Balaam. Of course, Balaam is the Aramean sorcerer in the book of Numbers. But it's clear that Rav Shimon is not talking about that Balaam, for Balaam didn't make himself live by the name of God. Also, a few lines before, Rav Papa says that this Balaam's mother was the child of rulers and Sagans, that is, she was descended from kings and Zadokite high officials of the Jerusalem temple. That doesn't describe the mother of Balaam, but it does describe the mother of Jesus, as Rav Papa knew. You see, the rabbis often concealed the identity of their opponents by referring to them in the persona of a foe they thought they resembled. So Rome, for instance, is called Edom, for the two names look similar in Hebrew, and the Romans destroyed the second temple just the way Edom helped to destroy the first. And in the same way, biblical Balaam was a seducer of Israel. He led them astray with Moabite women. And the rabbis said Jesus seduced Israel from the path of Torah observance. As Herford says, Jesus is often referred to in the Talmud under the figure of Balaam. Now, Rav Shimon says about this Balaam, "Woe to him who makes himself live, shemechaye atzmo, by the name of God." And the online William Davidson translation of the Talmud says that this means that Balaam the sorcerer made himself a living by the sacred name. But that's nonsense. That's not what the words mean at all. The word mechaye is a hifil causative form. Its meaning is perfectly clear. It means causing to live. In fact, it's a Bible word. It first appears in Hannah's prophecy of the resurrection of the dead. She says, "The Lord kills and makes to live, mechaye. He brings down to Sheol and raises up." And then later, the temple Levites sing, "You alone are he, O Lord. You made the heavens, the heaven of heavens, and all their host, the earth and all upon it, the seas and all within them. You are giving life, mechaye, to all, and the host of heaven worships you." So it's quite clear, mechaye means to give life to something that has no life, things dead or things not yet existing. So the Soncino Talmud translates it accurately, and it says, "Woe unto him who maketh himself alive by the name of God." So this person whom Rav Shimon calls Balaam gave life to himself, shemechaye atzmo, by the power of the sacred name. That can only mean that he revived himself from death. And this is further evidence that these rabbis are talking about Jesus, for Balaam the sorcerer never revived himself from death. If we want further evidence that the rabbis are speaking about Jesus, we can turn to Rashi's commentary on the Talmud. He says, "He made himself live by the name of God, making himself God like Pharaoh and Hiram." But the real Balaam did not make himself God. Once again, this is a common rabbinic accusation against Jesus. So it's pretty clear that Rashi also understands that this Balaam is Jesus. As Herford says again, Rashi seems to be well aware that someone other than Balaam is really intended. So, Rav Shimon ben Lakish and Rashi are both speaking about Jesus, and they say quite plainly that he raised himself from death. You know, the rabbis never doubted Jesus' miraculous powers. The Toldot Yeshu, an anti-gospel written by the Jerusalem authorities, probably before AD 70, tells how Jesus performed miracles and raised the dead by the power of the sacred name. So the rabbis knew he rose from death, but they don't like this idea. That's why Rav Shimon says, "Woe to him who makes himself live." However, those of us who believe the New Testament take a different view. As it is said, God raised him up, loosing the pangs of death, because it was not possible for death to hold him. But let's be clear, Rav Shimon and Rashi are both confessing that Jesus revived himself from death by the sacred name. And if you want to know a bit more about these subjects, you'll find them in my book, Jesus, the Incarnation of the Word. The details are below. But to close, surely this is remarkable. Here is the core text of Rabbinic Judaism and the foremost medieval Jewish interpreter both agreeing that Jesus raised himself from death. And is nobody talking about this? Thank you for listening. God bless you. Blessed be Jesus, the Messiah.